Hello and welcome to Abelard's Business News, looking back at November 2014 and picking up one or two things that are of importance to small business in the UK and beyond. This month I want to just talk to you about one thing, the change in VAT rules that's coming into force on January the 1st, 2015 for the sale of digital products in Europe. Many of you may not be aware even of these changes because they've not been particularly well publicised in our opinion, but they're really quite important and they change the business model for a number of small businesses. So I wanted just quickly to run through the main features. First of all, it's about digital products. That's things that are sold over the internet to consumers and businesses around the world without significant amounts of human direct intervention. So for example, a training course that's delivered over the internet with screens that you fill in as you go would probably be a digital product. A webinar that's recorded and is available to buy over the internet at any point is a digital product in the context of these rules. A live webinar isn't. And so there's a few variations. One of the things that exercises us a little bit at Abelard is that the definitions aren't being made clear, and so it's possible for what is currently determined to be a non-digital product to subsequently become one, and vice versa. So we're going to have to keep a close check on what is and isn't included. Now, the second thing that's happening is they're changing the way that VAT is charged from it being based on where you're based as the vendor of the product or the service to where the consumer is. Now, an important point here, it relates to consumers, non-businesses buying digital products rather than businesses, but I'll come back to that point later. The thing with determining the VAT on the country in which the supply takes place is really about levelling the playing field between those companies that were able to import into a territory and compete more effectively because their tax position was better than a local. And I think at one level we can all agree that that's a fairer system. It's the way it's being implemented that we think is being poorly thought through. So what we're going to have to do in the UK, and I'm going to talk from a UK perspective, but the same applies to anybody within Europe and indeed around the world. If you're selling into a European country, you're going to have a digital product, of course, you're going to have to register with the VAT authority in that country. And here's the rub. There is no minimum. A single ebook, a single recorded webinar will require you to register for VAT. Now, HMRC in the UK, the UK's tax authority, is seeking to make that a little bit easier with a thing called the Mini One-Stop Shop, or MOS. And you can register for MOS, but you have to be registered for VAT in the first place to be able to register for MOS. So we think this measure is going to trap a lot of small businesses that sell a few digital products but are below the tax threshold, certainly in the UK and perhaps in other countries, and draw them into the VAT net. That means they've got to change their business model. They've got to start charging VAT on everything that they sell and recording VAT and input recovery VAT on the expenses that they have, balance the two off and do a quarterly tax return. If they're selling into a European country, they've got to start capturing a lot of detail about the consumer, where they're based, where they actually bought the product, and whether they're a consumer or a business. And the rules are quite different for businesses. I'm not going to go into those now, but in essence, they're not changing at all as a result of this measure. So if you're going to sell to businesses, you need to be able to prove it's a business. The simplest way to do that is to get a VAT number, and again that is going to push people who are not currently VAT registered into registering for VAT. So we think ultimately the minimum thresholds for VAT are not going to have a lot of meaning if you are a business that sells most of your products over the internet. If you're a retail business, high street business in one country, obviously the minimum threshold still makes sense in that environment. So that's the quick overview. Now, I said I'd come back to the point about businesses. So businesses, as I mentioned, they'll have to collect the VAT number of the business they're selling to, or some other evidence of that gives you reason to be able to prove that it's a business. Now, the challenge here is that evidence isn't defined either. So it's going to fall down to our word against the regulatory authorities. And I have a subtle feeling who might win in that discussion. Now, of course, we're now open as businesses to being fined for misreporting, not just in one country, but in all of the countries of Europe. And looking at it as a consumer of digital products, there's another challenge here, and that is that, of course, the cost of those digital products is going to go up if the supply originally came from a low tax country or from outside Europe, because for the first time, goods that are provided digitally into Europe, exported from, let's say, the United States, and a lot of our apps on our smartphones fall into that category, those app makers are now going to have to pay VAT. So what should we all do about it as businesses? Well, we can register. If we're registered for VAT, we can register for the mini one-stop shop. We're going to have to change the way we sell, change the screens on which we collect data, and collect the data we need to be able to report properly. Okay, that's a burden, but it's not impossible. If you're not registered for VAT, you're probably going to have to do that. So you might want to think about putting the wheels in motion to do that fairly soon. Because in reality, that takes a few months. And we're only a month away from the implementation of these rules. So you may have a hiatus when actually you can't really sell your products into Europe. And I'm sure that wasn't the intention of the legislation. You can change your business model and sell digital products only through agencies. So people like, if you're selling ebooks, people like Amazon for Kindle and Apple for iBooks. If you're selling apps, you can sell them solely through the Apple Store, the App Store, or the equivalents for Android and Windows. Now, of course, that means that the vendor of the product isn't you. You're providing the product as a wholesaler into a vendor like Amazon. They will do the tax returns, so you get rid of that burden, but they will also own the customer. So you need to think about possibly changing calls to action and follow-up if you use digital products as part of your marketing funnel. There's a lot of change that I've touched on here, and if any of you have any questions or want to know more about that, we're very happy to answer any of those. Just get in touch. But we've also decided actually that we need to go a little step further. We've involved a few organisations that we know, and we're writing to our MP and MEP, and the letter that I've used to do that is on the blog on the Abelard site. If you want to use it to write to your MP, adapt it, change it, then please do. I'll be talking more on this as we see the implementation, particularly if I pick up any stories where it's had a particularly negative impact on business. But equally well, I don't want to be a soothsayer of doom, as they say. So take a look at how it affects your business. Think about, if you're selling digital products, how best to do that in this new and changed world. It's still perfectly possible to sell them at a profit and to make money, but you may need to just adjust your business model to make the best use of this changed environment. And if you'd like to talk through any of those things with us, then of course give us a call. So that's all for this month. We'll be back next month with more digital news, more business news, and more things that are affecting small businesses in the UK and beyond. Thanks very much.